guests are late, but I guess I don't want to postpone the program to that, please.
Okay. Should I say the journal?
Yeah, short, you generally say really short. Krishna Prasad Prabhu ki jai, Krishna Bhagavad-gita ki jai.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Alright, so today we'll be reading from Bhagavad-gita chapter 1, text 4.
We guess a little late.
I guess you're late. Anyways, I think we should start. You preach to them. Huh? I mean, if we orient the program according to guests.
Right. No, you can't do that.
We have to start. Keep going.
Atra
Atra
Shuraha
Shuraha
Mahishu Ashaha
Mahishu Ashaha
Bhimarjuna
Bhimarjuna
Samaha
Samaha
Yudhi
Yudhihi
Yudhanaha
Yudhanaha
Irataha
Virataha
Cha
Cha
Drupada
Drupada
Cha Maharataha
Maharataha
Atrasura Maheshwasa
Attasura Maheshwasha
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi
Yudhano Viratascha
Yudhano Viratascha
Drupadascha Maharataha
Drupadascha Maharataha
Atrasura Maheshwasa
Attasura Maheshwasha
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi
Yudhano Viratascha
Yudhano Viratascha
Drupadascha Maharataha
Drupadascha Maharataha
Atrasura Maheshwasa
Attasura Maheshwasha
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi
Viratascha Drupadascha. Oh, I messed this up here. Let me start over again.
Yudhano Viratascha.
Okay. Yudhano Viratascha
Yudhano Viratascha
Drupadascha Maharataha
Drupadascha Maharataha
Atrasura Maheshwasa.
Atrashura Maheshwasha
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi.
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi
Yudhano Viratascha.
Yudhano Viratascha
Drupadascha Maharataha.
Drupadascha Maharataha Atrashura Maheshwasha
Atrasura Maheshwasa.
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi.
Yudhano Viratascha
Yudhano Viratascha.
Drupadascha Maharataha
Drupadascha Maharataha.
Atrasura Maheshwasha
Atrashura Maheshwasha
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi
Bhimarjuna Samayudhi
Yudhano Viratascha
Yudhano Viratascha
Drupadascha Maharataha
Drupadascha Maharataha
Atra
Atra
here.
Here
Suraha
Suraha
Heroes.
Heroes
Mahaishwashaha.
Mahaishwashaha.
Mighty Bowman.
Mighty Bowman.
Bhima Arjuna.
Bhima Arjuna.
To Bhima and Arjuna.
Bhima and Arjuna.
Samaha.
Samaha.
Equal.
Equal.
Yudhi.
Yudhi.
In the fight.
In the fight.
Yudhanaha.
Yudhanaha.
Yudhana.
Yudhana.
Virataha.
Virataha.
Virata.
Virata.
Cha.
Cha.
Also.
Also.
Drupadaha.
Drupadaha.
Drupada.
Drupada.
Cha.
Cha.
Also.
Also.
Maharataha.
Maharataha.
Great fighter.
Great fighter.
Translation. Purport. By the divine grace, A.C. Bhagavad-gita Swami Srila Prabhupada
Ki Jai.
Here in this army are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. Great fighters like Yuyudhana, Virata, and Drupada. Purport. Even though Drishtadyumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power in military art, there were many others who were causes of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling blocks on the path of victory because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them. Om Jnana-Timananda Shakti-Nandana Salakaya Chakshuram-Tanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya-Mahavistam Stapitam-Yena Bhutale Swaram Rupa Kamayam Tati Swapantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shukta Parakamam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sarvatam Sarvanantamitam Sajivam Sarvatam Sarvadutam Paritana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Krishna Madan Sahaganam Shri Vishakamitam Scha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So question and answers is at 12:45, right? Questions and answers 12:45.
Go on to 12:58.
12:15. Alright. Let's see here. So in this particular text, the Prabhupada's making one important purport about the military obstacles here. That previously, that there was some people that weren't so much a threat, but he's comparing these others like Yuyudhana and Virata and Drupada to Bhima and Arjuna, because those are the big obstacles in the war, which to be understood. So Prabhupada has made a point in he's commented on this verse. I've been given a class on it in London in '73, and he was quoting the verse Krishna Sambandhe. So things in relationship with Krishna have surcharged with a special spiritual currency. We can understand. So these names that are given here, and there's also other places like in Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. There's names given of great kings, great devotees, along the list of names. So this chapter, though it may, like these couple verses coming up here, there's a lot of names and this and that. These names, because they're in a relationship with Krishna, are actually purifying, because they're devotees of Krishna. So they help awaken our Krishna consciousness. So that's one way we can understand that also. So this is the situation of war. So when one is, particularly from the perspective of a war, a battlefield, or some type of disagreement or some obstacle and some type of conquest or something, there's an intellectual understanding that there's some things that will be easy to take care of and there's some things that are difficult to take care of. So in this regards, there's some opponents that are easier, some that are not so easy. We can kind of understand in our day-to-day lives. Usually when people, they when they tell you to pack something, if you're going on a big trip, you may take a lot of stuff. Maybe as brahmacharis, not so much. But if you have a family and things, you may have, they take the baby stroller and this and that, and the wife's suitcase, and there's a lot of things. So they usually say, when you pack, if you're driving a car, you put the biggest thing in first, because then you can kind of arrange everything else around that. So in this art of war, and this is still prevalent. Whatever might be of the most trouble will be attacked first. So maybe some specific military base or some outposts. Generally, when wars are fought, they don't go so much for the cities. They do sometimes, but they don't go for the farms, because they understand the farms people, they're growing. There's cows, chickens. There's big fields. There's not so much of a military threat. But a place like a city may be a military threat, or even worse, a military outpost or base, like a naval base, military base, air base, because that is the main thing that's going to cause a problem in your advancement. So sometimes in the history of the world, people were very much afflicted and uneasy by nuclear outposts, which they would store nuclear weapons and things, and made people very uneasy. So they would take pictures of them and things like that. Anyways, I won't go so much into that now. So we can understand when a situation is under our control, when we feel like we have everything nicely, then we feel very confident, very satisfied. Just like for the most part here in the beginning, it seems like Duryodhana feels pretty confident. He's asking in the big Dhritarashtra actually felt pretty confident in the beginning also, and Duryodhana a little bit, but specifically Dhritarashtra, he was thinking, that this, what did they do, at the battlefield? It's kind of feeling, my sons, of course, they won, but it's revealed towards the end, they actually didn't win, that they completely lost. So one who is, when he feels confident, things are under my control. He's in a sense relaxed, thinking I have control of the situation, and that's seen, relatively a lot of people. They feel generally all people feel satisfaction when someone's under control. When someone's, for instance, two people are playing a game, and if one is winning or playing chess or something and is very equipped and skillful, then he doesn't feel so uneasy with his opponent. Just like in fighting also, for instance, if there's two fighters, one man has been training for 20, 30 years, and somebody comes off the street to box with him, he doesn't feel so uneasy, because he thinks, he doesn't know anything, he doesn't know the technique, he doesn't know the form, we've been playing for 20 years, this will be no problem. When one is faced with an obstacle that is equal or greater with him, then one begins to feel unsteady, but one must rise up to the challenge. So, of course, as we understand, there was no, there's this illusion for the Dronacharya, Duryodhana, that he has Krishna's army and everything will be great, whereas he doesn't realize that Krishna is Arjuna having Krishna on this side, all victory is there. So the other understanding also is when a situation is difficult or out of our control, there's anxiety, there's worry, there's fear, which is more or less kind of more so seen. Someone may be in a position, someone may be in a situation to where they're in control for some period of time, and then things start to get out of their control. We can see a lot of, with some of these big leaders in society, they have, they may be in control of power, but they have extensive departments in order to maintain their power, maintain their control, and understand what's going on in the world. Specifically with world powers, it's not to discuss so much, but they have very extensive departments of intelligence, which is, these are like fancy words. They're like spies and things like that, where they're infiltrating in different countries and in the society also, specifically that Homeland Security, FBI. These are like pretty much in the level of CIA within or Secret Intelligence Agency within America, and so there's international kind of spying and listening and gathering intelligence to figure out what's going on with opposing elements in society of one's particular rule. And so one is in the situation worrying and he hears is this information right? Is it wrong? Is this person challenging me? What is going on here? So then that individual is in control, is in anxiety, trying to hold that power. And so we can see, and then that's, on a big level, also small level. Somebody's worrying about, will I pass my exam, or will I get enough to eat? This anxiety. So this fear in particular is also present on this battlefield. Prabhupada makes a point in the purport that even though Drishadumna was not an important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power and military art, there were many others who were causes of fear. So this cause of fear is very prevalent in all people's lives. And there's different manifestations of fear also, and of worry. You can see, there's so many different levels. People are fearful about so many different things, so many situations in life that invoke some nervousness in people. And then there's so many different things, so I'll name a couple. One thing people are afraid of, maybe as I saw, a little bit as a child, but maybe children and some adults are afraid of. They're afraid of lightning and thunder. People they see the lightning, that's not so scary. Then they hear the thunder, and it sounds like the sky is cracking, and people get very scared and nervous. This is this huge sound, created by nature, and that freaks out people. Some of the children, I remember, maybe it was when I was young, some friend or something that's young. The thunder came, you saw the lightning, and then you heard the crack. Maybe during one of those hurricanes or something when I was young, and then they ran away from the window and get scared. And in this way, there's fear invoked in the children. We can also see, generally, a lot of people are afraid of darkness at night. Generally, people walk around the streets here and there during the daytime. They'll go down an alley, but when it becomes night, the darkness sets in. People are scared to go down alleys. They're scared of different things. Being in the woods, and when it's dark out, there's no lights, and then you hear the crickets chirping and the owls hooting. And maybe even some wolves or something howling. People get scared of those things. And then those noises wouldn't be so scary in the light. And maybe you saw whatever. Like for instance, you're in the forest in the middle of the night, it's completely dark, and then you hear some scuttling of the twigs on the ground, and somebody freaks out or something, or yelps. In that way. So darkness, there's some characteristic which invokes fear in people's hearts. It's like this devotee was asking another devotee last night about going about to a certain part of town at night. He says, should I go here at night? Is it dangerous? So there's an understanding that at night things can be dangerous. And we see, there's thieves and things that come out at night. And people party and go crazy at night. So there's this special anxiety that comes with Tamaguna in the evening. Also, people are very afraid of heights. There's these big buildings here, specifically in New York. Rama was making the point. So he was making the point a couple of days ago about how people fell off these buildings trying to make them, make this money, and they were just spacing out, having a good time, 100 stories in the air, and then they just fall off. A couple of days ago, recently, I saw on the news there was somebody fell and died in an airport. It was in Orlando because I was born there. Then it was there's some attachment there for that. So somebody was doing their job and I don't know, fell off, wasn't paying attention or whatever, and fell down and got very much hurt.
Fell off the roof of the airport?
Huh?
Fell off the roof of the airport?
I didn't look at it. It said it was a task force. It was probably, I don't know where they fell off. Just a little space on. See, some people are afraid of looking bad in public. Green spots on them. But devotees of Krishna, they are not fearful of the public. So this heights, this is very true. I remember when I was younger, I came to New York, and I went down. We went to. It was a big group. We went to the top of the Rockefeller Tower, and they have these big, huge glass, see-through, pretty much fences. So you can, not fences, like, I don't know what to clear. They're like clear see-through plastic things, like a cage, so you don't try to jump out and kill yourself. The top of Rockefeller. I mean, if you're really determined, you could, but probably people are going to try to stop you. So I remember being on top of that, looking, and you can see, all the way down to at the bottom of the street. I was a little nervous. I was I feel safe and everything, but it's just like, that's like a long way down. And so that is, generally a lot of people are afraid of heights. Planes also, some people are afraid to go in planes just because it's so high and you're in an uncontrollable situation. And there's something, the animals, people are afraid of spiders and things. And then some of these different fears also, maybe specifically with animals, and some of the other ones, there's fears that are also, they're irrational. There's not really any logical explanation why someone is fearful of something. Like spiders, for instance. I used to know because I used to read a bit on spiders. So most spiders' mouths are so small that they can't even bite you. It's basically like tarantula, which is like probably the scariest looking spider. It's all big and hairy and it just looks like a little monster walking around. The mouths are small, they can't even bite you. The people, they just look scary and people are afraid. There's a disconnected logic also. And they can go on and on and on and on and on. But we can understand, that this, we can look also, so we can understand. So these things are there. So people are fearful. They may be fearful of this, that, but it's more or less the same feeling of fear. This worry of being harmed in some way. And so this we can understand how does fear exactly come about? What is fear spawns from, and how do we understand it? Is it something in the brain, or someone's in a certain situation, and then it evokes these feelings in them, and then some chemicals and wires, and then it sends some shrills down their spine, and it's a chemical reaction? Is it something people are born with? Some people are more afraid than others. Some people they say that guy's a wimp. He's always scared. He's weak. He's weak-minded, weak-willed. So he can't take pressure. Is it due to experience? Somebody experiences a situation and become fearful. You can see that sometimes. Somebody may be a little kid and they may be playing with something. I have some experiences also doing some stuff as a child and getting extremely hurt. And then that created a fear around a certain situation for the rest of my life. And other people also have that experience also of being a child and having some experience and then just causing fear. So those different things are there. There's different ways to look at it. Attachments also, but the main thing that we understand from the teachings of Bhagavad-gita about fear is that it's spawned from I'll read a verse and part of a verse in reference to that. And let me say this Sanskrit, just let me pull it up here. But fear, actually bring it up in this one. So fear is stated as bhayam dvitaya binihi vedesha shat. So fear comes by when the living entity is attracted by the material energy, which is separate from Krishna. So this, when the jiva, the individual, he begins to feel attraction for the material energy, whatever that may be. Maybe to a position, it may be to a person, it may be to a life, an experience, a nation, all these different things. That individual, when he feels that attraction and he moves away from Krishna, when he moves away from God, he becomes overpowered by fear. And we can understand this very easily. So Krishna is described as a hamsarvash, I believe that's a verse. Let me see here, because it's right next to this.
He's the source.
Yeah, so Krishna's the source, he's the owner of everything. Krishna says, I'm the source of all material and spiritual worlds. Everything emanates from me. So those who are intelligent, iti mancha bhajante mam bhuta bhava samavita. So they worship Krishna in great feelings of ecstasy, this bhava, with all their hearts. So those people that do that, they're happy and they're satisfied because they understand Krishna's the supreme shelter and they take shelter of Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate shelter of all living entities, Ashraya. And we are meant to take shelter of them. So just like, it's so easy to understand. So for instance, if I decided right now that I was going to wage war against NYC Harinama Ashram inside here right now, and I you all are my enemies. I'm going to be kicked out on the streets, because I'm not willing to coexist and work with the workings of the intellectual structure here. So I immediately have to get out because I'm just going to cause a disturbance. So when the living entity decides that he doesn't want to do Krishna's program of bhakti yoga and he wants to do something else, then he goes to the material energy and then fear immediately kicks in. And then if I were to leave here also, that would be in a fearful situation. It's cold outside. They just threw me out. I was borrowing half the clothes I was wearing from them, the jackets. I have no jacket. I got no money. I got no place to go. The phone bill, it's like I was completely 100% under the shelter of everyone here. And then just to turn my back on them immediately in a fearful situation outside. And people sometimes, they do that just to turn against, I'm going to fight against the nation I'm in. Sometimes, revolutions and things happen. And sometimes they come out. But for one man to just completely turn against his nation, against the boss, the one he's working under, someone that's in a superior position, and it's going to instill fear in one's heart because he's turning his back on the one who's providing shelter. And there's this famous saying also, they say, don't bite the hand that feeds you. So it's described, someone is weak, they're feeding you. Oh, then you bite the hand, they're not going to feed you anymore, and you're going to suffer. So when the living entity tries to bite Krishna's hand, hypothetically, he's overcome by fear. And so the living entity more or less enters into a nightmare of all these different things that we talked about. So then some of these different things, these are things that people are very much afraid of. Public speeches, this and that. I'm sure it changes from time to time. So people are afraid of everything. War, the future generally. What's going to happen in my future? I'm in high school now, or whatever. I'm 30 years old. I haven't been married. Who's gonna, what's going on? People. I look so ugly. I'm so fat. I'm this and that. This fear. This is due to rebellion against Krishna, and more or less the world becomes a nightmare. Even if we have the greatest life, whatever soever, there's also fear there, because one who has the greatest life, is that the king of the world, just like we were speaking of previously. He owns everything. He's the boss, the head honcho. He's got the intelligence down. Nobody's gonna take his kingdom. What is he worrying about? I don't know if I'm gonna live forever. I don't know if the science is advanced enough to where I can stay alive forever. I have the best scientists going at it. Hopefully they can preserve my body, or they can create another body to place my brain in so I can live eternally. They may think like this. I don't know. I didn't look into it. But I'm sure somebody at some point in time thought they could take the brain and put it in another body and carry on their life. Doesn't sound too crazy. they say so many crazy things. Anyways, and then they also too, they may think, well, maybe, I can do this or do that. I create a robot body. Now people think, like my arm falls off and I'll get a robot hand. And this mental dream goes on. So the nightmare, I'm going to die eventually. I don't have much time. Some people, they get that. So what does one do? So one has to come to reality of what is going on. And we can understand, so at the end of this chapter also, Arjuna was also, in the beginning, so this first chapter, towards the end, Arjuna was also inspired, I wouldn't say inspired, but he was feeling some fear also, like how many of us feel. And he was so overwhelmed with fear that he didn't know what to do. He became completely bewildered intellectually. That's a different chapter. But he was so disturbed by fear and anxiety, he just didn't want to fight. He was just kind of locked up. Sometimes that also happens when people are in a very stressful situation. They can't function mentally anymore. They just kind of stop or go into shock or whatever. Or now some people may have difficulty breathing, an asthma attack or something. There's a lot of different health issues that are brought about by intense anxiety. And so Arjuna was going through some intense anxiety. He was beginning to cry and just becoming weak and dropping his weapons. And he didn't want to fight. He was in a state. The nightmare was limited. He had to make a choice, and no choice was right. He didn't know what to do. And so that was Arjuna's position, and that's more or less a lot of us also. We're in a position where we don't really know what to do. We don't know what to do. We don't know where to go. We don't know what's up, what's down. How did I get here? Maybe I'll read part of that purport because there's actually some good points in there about that. So he says here, when a man sees only frustration in his expectations, he thinks, why am I here? So Arjuna was like, how did I get here? What is going on? And in that way, he was overpowered by this fear. So the way to free oneself from this fear is just like a nightmare. So everybody's in this nightmare. And the way to be awakened from the nightmare is through sound. So through the Divya Gyan, or the transcendental knowledge, which awakens one and dissipates the darkness of ignorance and awakes the sleeping soul, is the way to be freed from the nightmare in which all people are experiencing. So we have to be awakened through knowledge and come to the state of reality through sound. And that sound is spoken in the Vedic literatures, in Bhagavad-gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, and is carried by the representatives of the Parampara who travel around the world expounding spiritual knowledge for the benefit of all. And they speak the same message, and that message, as spoken by Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami, is very simple: Nitya Siddha Krishna Das. So this couple of words expound very great meaning. But so Sanatana Goswami was in a nightmare also, and he was beginning to awaken from that. He was saying, who am I? Why am I suffering? So he was coming, there's something not right. Why am I suffering? Most people, they don't inquire really why am I suffering. They think that's just a part of life. But that's also another dimension of being full also. So this Nitya Siddha Krishna Das means that you are eternally a servant of Krishna, an eternally servant of God. And having forgotten that, you've encountered all these different miseries. But if you simply turn yourself back to that position and engage yourself in the service of Krishna, you can move from the nightmare to reality, from fearful to being fearful to being fearless. Bhayam to abhayam. So this Sanskrit word abhayam means fear, and abhayam means fearless. It's described that one can only become fearless when he takes out of Krishna. And I'll read part of the purport here that explains this point that we're discussing. So this is from the Bhagavad-gita. Bhava, birth should be understood to refer to the body. As far as the soul is concerned, there is neither birth nor death. That we have discussed in the beginning of Bhagavad-gita. Birth and death apply to one's embodiment in the material world. Fear is due to worrying about the future. A person in Krishna consciousness has no fear because by his activities, he is sure to go back to the spiritual sky, back home, back to Godhead. Therefore, his future is very bright. Others, however, do not know what their future holds. They have no knowledge of what the next life holds. So they are therefore in constant anxiety. If we want to get free from anxiety, then the best course is to understand Krishna and be situated always in Krishna consciousness. And that way we will be free from all fear. And the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, Vayam dvitaya vini visheshtaha shyat. Fear is caused by our absorption in the illusory energy. But those who are free from the illusory energy, those who are confident that they are not the material bodies, that they are spiritual parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and who are therefore engaged in the transcendental service of the Supreme Godhead, have nothing to fear. Their future is very bright. This fear is a condition of persons who are not in Krishna consciousness. Abhayam, fearlessness, is possible only for one in Krishna consciousness. So this point here is being made that the actual fear is caused mainly by one's attachment to the material body and the material world, because that's where it all spawns from mainly. So one turns his back from Krishna, turns his back from God, and he becomes immediately attracted to the material world. And then as a byproduct of being attached to the material world, or part of the package deal, is fear arises. So when one comes to his natural position, just like a child, he turns his love and his attention toward the Father, and he's protected, but in all respects. And the child doesn't have to worry so much about his need, how his needs are met, or things like that. Everything's taken care of. So if we turn our attention back to Krishna, back to and engage in that relationship, we'll be protected from fear, and we'll be saved from the nightmare of this material world, and we'll be situated in true happiness. And we can see also, just like there was other great saints that had turned their attention towards Krishna completely, and even in the greatest of difficulties, they felt no fear. Even when death was looking at them straight in the eye, they knew they weren't their bodies. They knew that their future would not be disturbed because they were fixed at the lotus feet of Krishna. There's very many examples given of this. So we can do this similarly. We can move from this state of fearful existence and to become fearless. And as we move towards that stage, we can also give this to others and help them to become fearless and understand what's causing their fear and anxiety. And so I'll end here if there's any questions or comments on anything.
It's kind of serendipitous me being here now, because yesterday I lost, even though it's not really important, it was important to me, but it was a big match. I wrestled. It was a big match, and I'm ranked number 2 in the Bronx. He was ranked number 1, and during the match, I don't know what happened to me, but I just stopped wrestling to the best of my ability, because in my mind he was better, and I was fearful. There were a bunch of people watching me. I tried to get in the corner and get in the zone, but when I got on the mat, I just stopped.
Things happen for a reason, but we can understand that not everything is under our control. So sometimes we may be in a situation and we may just not perform up to par for whatever reason, but we can understand that ultimately everything is under the direction of the Supreme, and there's a guidance and some plan and the reasons for that, for our own spiritual welfare. So they think that they're saying that, what is hindsight's 20/20 or something like that.
Yeah.
So when you're in a situation, sometimes you think, man, what is going on? Why is this happening? But then you look back and you see, this is why this happened. For instance, in my own life, I was in a very distressful situation some months ago, and then I keep a journal of different things. So I looked in the journal, as I'm like really stressed about this and that. And then at the end of it, I said, eventually I'll look back and laugh at this and say that how this was all being arranged very nicely. And I was looking at it, and I was like, well, I'm not laughing yet. So, but I was like, give it a little bit more time. And so anyways, things happen for a reason. And then if we keep that in mind, that there's some intelligence guiding our lives, then, when those situations arise, then we can make the best of them instead of being disturbed about how a lot of people are about those things.
Yeah, I was gonna say that as we're in these material bodies are temporary, and so the thing we fear most is change. I believe, like they say that the number one thing we fear most is public speaking, and then number 2 is death. So it's like
That's number 2.
yeah, it's just like this. How much people hate, people don't like, things changing.
Yeah.
You see that with people who are stuck in their jobs that they hate, they absolutely detest it, but they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know anything different.
Yeah.
They can't imagine the change and be able to go through that.
Yeah, that's really
So they stick to their ways.
Yeah. Change is a bit more.
I have a question. At the beginning, you said all those names they are mentioned in relation to Krishna, so
Yeah.
they are purifying. And so it includes includes like names of demons like Duryodhana, Hiranyakashipu?
To my understanding, I mean, I don't know, 100%. I'm sure there is some, because in the otherwise in the prayers of the Dasarvata Shrota, Kesha, Hiranyakashipu, Dhanabringam, so this name is mentioned there, otherwise it wouldn't be. And it's in the relationship to Krishna, into Krishna. So there's, when we think of Kamsa, we don't think, oh, this was this great ruler and this and that, and he overthrew Ugrasena, and he was, administrating this and here and there, and Hiranyakashipu was in control. Well, you think of the relationship to Krishna, so it invokes, some pastime and element like that. So that way it's purifying. You had something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like how their fearfulness is due to the asat nature that they're attached to. They're really, like Crusade scared of that change coming, or this the fact that everything is so temporary and they're losing everything. They're losing their money, they're losing their houses, hankering and lamenting constantly. There's that fear of changing and losing things and constantly trying to get more at the same time. It's like a lot of fear is put into them, like your story, fear that I'm gonna lose and this gonna make me feel like this, and over time what will happen, so many things going in your mind. It's like how if you take just shelter of the divine energy, like Krishna saying in the 7:14, the divine energy of mind consisting of three modes of material nature is difficult to overcome, but those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. So the mind is like it can easily go past it without any, problems. You simply just take shelter of, you just simply just surrender unto me. So just taking that sat nature instead of the asat nature, you can easily overcome fear.
I have a question. So you're saying that how when you were going through all the bad things you were going through, it somehow like aligned you in the right, position, situation. So could you explain a little bit more about
That particular situation, or just in general?
like in either in that situation or like in particular, like if certain bad things don't happen to people, like sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
So I was wondering if you could speak a little bit more.
Yeah. So I mean, before maybe coming, I'll try to give two short ones. Before coming to Krishna consciousness, materially speaking, I mean, like, I pretty much was like set, like, money wasn't really so much of a problem. I mean, I wasn't from like a wealthy family, but I just, money wasn't a problem. Like, I lived with my grandparents, so they were retired, and I didn't really have to do anything. Like, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't have to work. I could just kind of like hang out. I was free in that sense. Whereas some of my other friends, they had to work and things. They got kind of kicked out of the house and stuff. So there was like some room there, but I was, I wasn't satisfied, and I wasn't happy. There was a lot of things that I tried for, I friendship, family love, all these different things. And that even though the situation was comfortable, I wasn't so happy with my family. I didn't really get along with them so much, and I was working really hard to get some type of job also. For some reason, I couldn't get a job, and I couldn't, for whatever reason. But one major thing is that a lot of my friends before coming to Krishna consciousness, like a lot of them just started stabbing me in the back, which is like really cruel, really mean, and we were just like good friends. I've grown up with all the years. We're just being very ruthless. Then one of my friends like ripped me off like $1,000, and it was just like, I was really just angry about all that, and I was like, why is this happening to me? All these people I trust, but it helped me realize that these so-called people I trust were never my really actual friends. That kind of helped me move forward in Krishna consciousness and on the spiritual path. And then just being on the path also, I sometimes became attached situation or whatever to like concept of myself and just getting puffed up, and some arrangement was made to like reveal like things were taken away or put in a situation to realize where I really was. And so at the time, when things were being taken away or my friends were stabbing me in the back, I was feeling like, how could this happen? These people, this and that, I trusted this and that. But then looking back, I think, if this person didn't like stab me in the back how they did, or if, I didn't get kicked out of this place or worried, then, I wouldn't really try to take more shelter of Krishna because I was already satisfied in that situation. So in that way, that kind of, that helped me. That answers the question a little bit. Okay. All right, so the next part of the program is chanting Hare Krishna, which awards fearlessness, Abhaya Charanada Bindohe. So, here's Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Jaya Jayo Prabhupada.
Thank you, Rama. This is Sharon. We met him in Times Square yesterday.
Yes,
Yeah, he bought us up the issue from
I didn't get there till late.
He bought it around the same time we